Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be hopping in the boat with my good buddy Brad Hawthorne, and he's going to be talking all about finding and catching fish during this early summer period when the fish are kind of post-spawn, and he's going to be talking about bass and walleyes. So there's going to be a lot of good information that'll help you catch fish right now during this early summer period. So stay tuned. We catch a bunch of fish on actually one of my new favorite baits that actually I'm not going to show it to you yet. You're going to see it here in a minute.
So we didn't get the whole thing, I bet you, but first cast, Northland Rip and Minnow. And I'm out here with my good customers from Iowa. And that would be the first, yeah, I got him. First walleye today on the Rip and Minnow. We actually just tied this on, switched over because these guys are throwing jig worms, and again, that's why you buy that bait right there, because the fish absolutely chomp it. Now, it's a really easy bait to work. You know, a lot of guys have been kind of DIYing, buying heads and using their own plastics, but what makes this special is right out of the package it comes rigged right. So all you got to do is tie it on. I kind of go over how I'm doing it, is throw it out. This is quarter, so I'm just giving it 5-6 seconds to get to the bottom. We're in about 6 foot of water. And then I just start popping it back to the boat. Let it fall, pop, pop. And the difference between, a lot of guys go, why aren't you using a puppet minnow or something like that? And the reason you don't use a puppet minnow or anything with a bottom treble on it is because the Rip and Minnow doesn't have any hooks on the bottom of it. So the key to this bait is letting it hit bottom and then popping it forward. And if you had hooks on the bottom or hooks on the front and the back end of it, you're gonna pick up zebra mussels, you're gonna pick up grass, you're gonna pick up weeds, you're gonna pick up all that stuff. So you can make multiple casts on this guy, because when it hits the bottom, it lays just like that. So with anything, like I said, anything with treble hooks on the bottom, you're going to pick up stuff. So that's what makes the Rip and Minnow effective, is you can cast and cast and cast, and you're not cleaning the thing off all the time.
Now, as Brad mentioned, this bait is going to be an absolute killer when you're fishing around cover. So we were out on Mille Lacs Lake, obviously that's where Brad guides, and Mille Lacs is just absolutely filled with zebra mussels. So anytime you're using something that has a treble hook dangling off the bottom, that is going to catch zebra mussels like crazy. So that's where this bait really shines. It also works great when you're fishing around rocks, but also in addition to that, fishing around weeds. This can be a great alternative to just like a straight plastic on a normal jig head. And the reason why it's an alternative and not a replacement is because it does something completely different. It has that side-to-side action thanks to these fins on the bottom of the jig here. So it's a really cool option for fishing in weeds as well. So enough on the bait, let's get to some more fishing action.
Not bad. There you go. So it's kind of fun about Mille Lacs is you got, like, we're doing a bass trip right now. I decided, hey, I'm gonna throw for some walleyes. I threw a Rip and Minnow on. These guys are just throwing basically a jig worm, and we're getting these fish still in June here, 6 to 12 feet of water. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, that shows you how productive Mille Lacs is, to be able to come out here, throw jig worm around, throw Rip and Minnow around, 6 to 12 feet of water, 6 to 8 feet of water, and still consistently catch fish pretty much anywhere you go. There's not a spot we haven't tried today. Oh, I take that back. There's 2 spots we tried where we didn't get anything. But every spot we've tried today, it's got fish on it. And this time of year, before everything, you know, moves out to the deep and just like kind of separates out, it's kind of cool because you catch smallmouth and walleye mixed together. So if you got guys in the boat that want to do 2 different things, you can do that simultaneously on the same spots.
So you probably heard Brad mention that he was actually on a bass trip this particular day, and you're probably thinking, like, what gives? Why has there been 2 walleyes and no bass so far? So we're gonna stop that right now, stop the walleye action just for a moment to show you this big, big bass that one of Brad's clients caught on this day.
Ooh, that's a nice one. Ooh, that's a really, really nice bass. Oh, that's a tank. That is such a tank. Oh my. Wow. That's the biggest fish of the day right there.
They will not tell him that.
There you go. Holy cow.
That was a big, long fish. It was 21 inches long and had one of those big, giant sumo-sized bellies. So that was definitely a cool one to see hit the net. But now we're gonna take a break from the fish catching action and we're gonna get more into some of the information that you can use to catch more fish right now. Here's how Brad has been tracking down the early summer post-spawn fish.
Okay, so when you get into early summer, early June's typically when it happens, and you have a couple things going on. You have all the fish are done spawning, that doldrum of the time period where all the fish spawn and they're a little, you know, groggy, they're kind of healing up, they're recouping after the spawn. That's all over. So what we have now is my favorite time of the year, when fish feeding happens and everything is just ramping up slowly, and we're right at the beginning of that. And that's right around that 60, 62, 63 degree water mark. And that's when plastics really come into play. Like, we don't even have live bait with today. And that is the time period where a lot of guys make the mistake, and you can still catch a lot of fish on live bait, but this is the time of year that if you like fishing fast, spot jumping, and picking off those active fish and just moving around and consistently catching fish, this is the time of the year to do it. And you've got about a 3 to 4 week window to do that. The presentations are going to be Rip and Minnows, jig worm, even crankbaits, and this is also when creature stuff, you know, creature baits come into play too. Also, take those minnows, those spot tails off the V-jigs and the long shanks and start throwing on paddle tails and fluke style baits, and you'll catch fish. I mean, that's the one thing that guys don't realize is you don't need to keep buying tons and tons of bait when that water starts to warm, just because the fish are digesting food faster, they're getting rid of it, and they're eating more. So right around that 60, 62 degree water mark, switch over to plastics and fish faster, and you'll ultimately catch more fish.
So when it comes to fishing plastics, there's really two schools of thought. You are either gonna wanna be using something that's bright and flashy. Pink is always a go-to. Speaking of pink, electric chicken right here is another great color. I'm actually a big fan of Rip and Minnows for a number of reasons, but one of those reasons is the fact that they have some great colors. And how about this for another bright and flashy one? So that's one school of thought. The other school of thought is going with something a little bit more natural like this. So we have kind of a smelt color there, we have white, and then this color right here is actually a color that Brad was using earlier in this particular day and catching some fish on as well. So Brad actually went with a brighter color. I don't know if I got it here in my box. I don't remember exactly what color it was, but it was something bright, and then he fished the natural color as well. So basically what I'm getting at is there's a couple schools of thought here, and you know, it's really a personal preference thing. But in my opinion, I really like to use bright, flashy colors, and I'll probably use them more often than not. But if it's also possible if you use something really bright, you might end up way out in left field. And in my personal opinion, if you want to get at least close on color, which close can be enough to get bites, going with something natural and more match the hatchie is going to be a great strategy.
So this is why the Rip and Minnow is so effective out here. This is a perch. The walleye we just caught spit that up right there, and that would be last year's perch. And you can see with the colors in the Rip and Minnow, that's exactly why you use them. You know, that erratic action, literally matching the hatch on the colors. And these guys come in 4 different sizes and a bunch of different colors. So if the fish are feeding on bluegill, perch, whatever they're feeding, there's gonna be a color to match them. But that's one thing to check. You know, a lot of guys will gag their fish to see what they're eating. Mille Lacs and a bunch of the northern Minnesota lakes, it's typically gonna be shiners, and perch is gonna be what the walleyes are feeding, which the Rip and Minnow matches all of those bait fish right there. So let that be a lesson to you. If a fish spits something up, take a look at the color of it and try to match it to the bait that's in your box.
So special thanks to Brad Hawthorne and his clients for letting me jump in the boat for a little bit to capture some fish catching action and some tips that hopefully you can use to catch more fish in the coming weeks. So there was a lot of walleye action, there was a lot of bass fishing action, it was a lot of fun, and hopefully you learned something in this video, and if you did, hit that little red subscribe button down below because we have a bunch more awesome videos coming this summer, so stay tuned, we'll see you next time.